I mean, yeah, I saw the ticket prices. I guess the only thing is, I'm surprised we're not playing at the United Center. I thought that would have been really good for the game and really good for all the women's basketball fans in Chicago. So maybe there's a conflict of some sort that I don't know about. Obviously, that's...
Have you ever watched a single announcement send the entire world of women's basketball into a frenzy? That's exactly what happened when the Chicago Sky revealed they'd be moving 2 key games from their usual home arena to the famed United Center. At first, it sounded like a simple scheduling twist until fans realized these weren't just any games. They were matchups involving the Indiana Fever, headlined by the unstoppable Caitlin Clark. While the league's been buzzing about her star power, there's a second rising talent who has a lot to say about it. Angel Reese. She's claimed she's every bit the attendance draw, every bit the headline maker. Yet if that's true, why aren't her games receiving the same VIP venue upgrade? Why have executives chosen only Caitlin's matchups to move into basketball's biggest stage? The story that's unfolded in the WNBA over the last few years is compelling, complicated, and at times downright dramatic. On one hand, the numbers, and in this case, the numbers are huge, seem to suggest Caitlin Clark is a once-in-a-generation engine of revenue. Entire front offices are placing bigger bets on her name than we've seen in a very long time. But on the other hand, Angel Reese and her supporters think the league is underrating her influence. She believes the hype around Caitlin might be overshadowing her own game, a game she insists also drives fans to the turnstiles. So, what's the real story here? Is this purely about finances, or is there a deeper star power rivalry playing out before our eyes? If you followed women's basketball closely, you know it's a sport on the rise with new icons emerging in almost every season. But what's happening now is different. Venues are being upgraded, ticket prices are skyrocketing, merchandise is flying off the shelves. And behind all that, heated debates are unfolding on social media about which player really deserves the credit. Is it Caitlin Clark, with her record-shattering collegiate feats and immediate WNBA impact? Or does Angel Reese have a point when she says, "We're all here because of me too"? By the end of this story, you'll have a front-row seat to the heart of their rivalry, and you'll see how a single scheduling decision might just redefine how we view the future of the WNBA. Before we jump into all the facts, rumors, and controversies, here's a warning. The truth might make some fans uncomfortable. Yet it's precisely these uncomfortable truths that explain why big arenas like the United Center are opening their doors. Get ready because we're about to peel back the layers on the business of women's basketball, the swirl of hype around 2 very different players, and the real reasons behind this arena shakeup. Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese entered the league around the same time, each touted as a generational talent. They had remarkable college careers, garnering massive media attention, lighting up highlight reels, and spawning social media fandoms that were often fiercely loyal. But just as importantly, they arrived in the league with very different public images. Caitlin Clark, for instance, was, and still is, viewed as a sharpshooter with an electric style of play. She's the kind of athlete who, with one fluid 3-point shot from midcourt, can make an entire arena erupt. Throughout her college days, we saw stadiums packed with fans wearing her jersey, chanting her name, and trending her every move on Twitter. By the time she declared she'd be entering the WNBA, the hype was at a level rarely seen before in women's basketball. Corporate sponsors, casual fans, and even folks who'd never watched a single women's college game started recognizing her face. Angel Reese, however, has built a brand on tenacity, both on and off the court. Where Caitlin's persona might feel more laid back and smooth, Angel's approach is brash, confident, and unafraid to ruffle feathers. She's made waves for her strong statements about equality in the sport, pushing her personal view that she stands shoulder to shoulder with any other star in the league. She's never been shy to call out perceived slights, particularly the ones she believes overshadow her own contributions. Recently, Angel made waves when she expressed outright confusion, even anger over how Caitlin Clark games keep getting moved to bigger venues. She demanded to know, in not so many words, why the seats aren't expanded when she steps onto the floor. For Angel, the league's sudden shift to places like the United Center just for Caitlin is baffling, and from her point of view, a little disrespectful. After all, she's also achieved high-level accomplishments, including her own run of highlight performances. didn't she help elevate the league's profile too? Yet behind the personal tension are objective factors that seem to be working in Caitlyn's favor. The attendance figures, the social media engagements, and the headlines often circle back to her name. That begs the question, are we witnessing a moment where one player's influence is simply overshadowing all others? Or is Angel Reese correct that the WNBA is ignoring an equally important star? Stay tuned, because the answers might surprise you and they'll definitely reveal how star power truly works in a league still finding its financial footing. For any basketball team, NBA or WNBA, deciding to play at the United Center is a major move. It's not just about the prestige, though the history and stature of that arena are legendary. It's also about capacity. The United Center can hold more than 20,000 fans for basketball, well over double what the Chicago Sky's regular venue can manage. If you're a front office executive trying to maximize revenue, you need a good reason to make such a leap. And evidently the Chicago Sky see that reason in Caitlin Clark. In 2025, they're hosting 2 key Indiana Fever matchups at the United Center, specifically because the typical 10,000-seat capacity of their usual home, Wintrust Arena, just can't meet the demand for tickets. The front office even sent out statements praising their fans, saying they want to reward loyalty and celebrate passion. But the question is, if rewarding fans is truly the goal, then why not upgrade all high-profile games? Why single out just the 2 nights Caitlin Clark's team rolls into Chicago? That's where Angel Reese's frustration simmers. She played an entire season as a rookie with no sign of moving to a bigger arena. There were no urgent memos about needing more seats. No major announcements that the city was clamoring to watch Angel lead the Sky. So even if Angel never publicly says she's offended, it's hard not to see how a competitor of her stature would feel slighted. What does it imply when your own team is willing to sit tight in a smaller space for your games, but doubles capacity for someone else's? To make the story even more compelling, it's not just Chicago making these moves. Across the league, you'll find teams bumping up capacity specifically for the Indiana Fever's away games. The Washington Mystics relocated to a bigger venue in Baltimore for their Clark matchups. The Connecticut Sun moved a Fever game to Boston's TD Garden. And the list goes on. When multiple teams in different markets do the same thing, it underscores the reality that Caitlin Clark's name is gold for ticket sales. But here's the twist. While Angel Reese might complain that only Caitlyn's games are moving to bigger arenas, the real reason could be cold, hard math. The WNBA has fought for years to gain consistent profitability. Now that a single player can spike viewership, drive up merchandise sales, and sell out seats in record time, teams want to catch that wave. They don't want to risk leaving money on the table, even if that means overshadowing other rising stars. So, is the United Center shift a clear sign that Caitlin Clark is the next big thing? Or is it an overreaction to a single hot prospect, leaving equally talented players in the background? With the way the numbers are shaping up, it's less about favoritism and more about the unstoppable logic of economics. But to understand just how unstoppable that logic is, we have to look at the data. Those attendance figures that hold the real key to this ongoing debate. People often say stats can be twisted to tell any story. But in this case, the story is fairly unambiguous. When we pull back the curtain on last season, we see the Indiana Fever shattered attendance records, bringing in over 341,000 fans at home. That's an enormous figure, surpassing a previous league record from 2001. It's not just a slight improvement. It's an explosion of interest, a historic wave that the franchise and the WNBA hadn't seen before. Now let's compare that with the Chicago Sky's attendance during Angel Reese's rookie year. Despite the hype, there wasn't even one game that came close to hitting 20,000 fans. By contrast, the Fever managed that milestone 3 separate times, all linked to Caitlyn's star attraction. Even more telling is the phenomenon of traveling fans and neutral spectators who buy tickets just to witness Caitlyn's signature long-distance shooting and uncanny court vision. It's not unusual to spot a sea of Caitlin Clark jerseys in arenas far from Indiana. A deeper dive into the numbers shows that whenever Clark faces off against an equally marketable opponent, like Angel Reese, the secondary ticket market explodes. Buyers scramble, sometimes paying hundreds or thousands of dollars to get seats. This demand soared to insane levels when Clark played top-tier rivals, overshadowing other marquee matchups that didn't involve her. Meanwhile, when Angel plays in the absence of Clark, the spike isn't nearly as dramatic. There's also a fascinating statistic about league-wide revenue. Apparently, a quarter of the WNBA's entire 2024 earnings were attributed to Caitlin Clark alone. If that figure is even close to accurate, then it reveals why so many teams are pivoting to bigger spaces. Suddenly, it makes more sense why the Washington Mystics, the Connecticut Sun, the Atlanta Dream, and now the Chicago Sky are all eager to roll out a larger welcome mat for the Fever. From a purely business standpoint, it's easy to see how that might upset Angel Reese. She's also an incredible talent. She put up strong rookie numbers, had highlight reel plays, and definitely draws her own crowd. But if ownership groups are seeing 2 or even 3 times the ticket demand for Caitlin Clark games, the bottom line becomes too loud to ignore. Where do you think they'll invest their promotional efforts? And which games do you think they'll move to bigger arenas? Most fans understand that sports leagues aren't purely about which athlete is nice or outspoken or brilliant on defense. They're about which athlete can translate star appeal into revenue. That's the reason these stadium upgrades happen. It's not about playing favorites for the sake of it. It's about meeting the surge of fan interest that Clark is generating. And based on these numbers, it looks like the demand for Caitlin has far outstripped anything Angel Reese has done to date, no matter how passionately Angel might argue otherwise.
I have announced that they are moving arenas for Indiana's home game. Well, Indiana's road game, but Chicago's home game. This is the motion that the Indiana Fever /
If the WNBA is the stage, then social media is the after-party where everyone voices their unfiltered opinions. Shortly after the Chicago Sky dropped their bombshell about the United Center, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok lit up with a blend of excitement, confusion, and outright fury. Fans of Caitlin Clark were quick to declare, "This is the Caitlin Clark effect in full swing. She's single-handedly filling arenas." Under hashtag after hashtag, they celebrated the move as a recognition of her phenomenal influence. One viral post read, "Every single team Clark visits wants a bigger arena. She's literally turning the WNBA into a headline attraction." Angel Reese supporters, however, had a very different take. They fired back with posts accusing the league of having a lopsided obsession. Funny how they never expanded for Angel's rookie games. Suddenly, the entire city of Chicago needs 21,000 seats for Caitlin. Smells like favoritism. Another user wrote, "Angel's numbers are underrated, and the league is giving her the short end of the stick. Put some respect on her name." Of course, not every fan is on one extreme or the other. A more balanced group pointed out that it all boils down to tickets sold. They wrote comments along the lines of, "I love both Clark and Reese, but come on, businesses follow the money." Another mention that blew up was, if the demand was there for Angel, the seats would expand. No front office is turning away extra cash without a reason. That's the crux of the debate. Is the WNBA ignoring Angel's star power? Or is the crowd itself deciding who the real box office draw is? Social media might be a great place for venting frustrations and rallying behind your favorite athlete, but it doesn't always reflect the complexities behind venue upgrades. Ticket sales, scheduling conflicts, marketing campaigns, these are multifaceted decisions made by owners, GMs, and marketing executives who look at in-depth financial reports and trend analyses. They're not just scrolling through Twitter for opinions. Still, the rancor can't be denied, especially considering how Angel Reese has publicly insisted that people watch women's basketball because of Me Too. When that stance clashes head-on with actual attendance numbers, tensions flare. Some fans relish the rivalry and see it as proof that women's basketball is finally evolving into a drama-fueled, big-money spectacle akin to the NBA. Others worry that a league built on camaraderie and collective growth might get swallowed up by star-driven fights and internet feuds. Only time will tell if social media spats end up hurting or helping the WNBA's bigger mission. But for now, they're definitely adding heat to the conversation.
What was happening? They gonna say, "See ya there, see ya there." Now, the Indiana Fever stated venue change. Our regular season game on May the 28th, on September 7th at the Washington Mystics are moving to CFG Arena in Baltimore, bruh. So as y'all can see here, say game location change, CFG Bank Arena, Baltimore, Maryland. CFG Bank Arena, Baltimore, Maryland. Somebody said, could it be the Mystic owner doesn't want the Caitlin Clark shine to be seen?
To truly understand why only certain games move to bigger arenas, you need to step into the shoes of a WNBA executive. For years, the league grappled with modest TV deals, limited merchandise lines, and an uphill battle just to find mainstream traction. Then, out of nowhere, a new wave of talent arrived, commanding attention from the media, corporate sponsorships, and fans who'd never before considered following women's basketball. It was a watershed moment, a chance to break the cycle of financial struggle. Look at it from the perspective of someone calculating potential profit. If you can sell out 20,000 seats instead of just 10,000, you're instantly doubling your ticket revenue, not to mention income from parking, concessions, and merchandise. For the Chicago Sky, moving 2 Fever games to the United Center could mean an additional $4 million, just like that. $4 million from 2 games is enormous in the WNBA ecosystem. In a league that sometimes struggles to make ends meet, that can be game-changing money. Funds that can go into better team facilities, improved marketing, and resources for player development. One might ask, if you can make that kind of cash off big games, why not move more of them? The answer, star power isn't universally distributed. If fans consistently clamor for Caitlin Clark but not for Angel Reese, you don't risk upgrading an arena for a game that might not sell out. Stadium rentals, staffing, and other logistical factors cost money. An executive wouldn't gamble on half-filling a 20,000-seat building just to prove a point. The moment the league sees the demand for Angels matchups skyrocket, they'll follow that money too. As many fans have pointed out, these teams aren't going to turn down revenue if they truly believe it's there. There's also the historical undercurrent. Women's professional basketball has rarely been in a position to be selective about where it plays, because attendance has been middling in many markets. With Caitlin, that dynamic has changed. Suddenly, it's not just about location or tradition. It's about packing as many enthusiastic spectators as possible into an arena. And if that means heading to the biggest stage in town, so be it. If the same demand arose for Angels appearances, we'd see those announcements too. But so far, it hasn't happened. The WNBA itself has welcomed the new wave of interest, touting record merchandise sales and unprecedented coverage on major sports networks. For them, Caitlin Clark is more than a star player. She's become a brand accelerator, opening countless doors that were previously closed. Even if Angel Reese doesn't like being overshadowed, the league as a whole benefits when these big-time spectacles occur. The crucial thing to watch in the coming seasons is whether other players can rise to that same level of influence, creating a situation where multiple stars drive major venue expansions. For now, it's just business, sums up the calculus in a league eager to solidify its financial foundation. Nobody should doubt Angel Reese's talent. She came out of college with a spotlight on her name, set her own records, and delivered intense, energetic performances that turned plenty of heads. She also carries a swagger that many fans find refreshing, especially in the sports world where so many stars stick to stale cliches during interviews. Angel isn't afraid to speak her mind, whether it's about her own accomplishments or about perceived inequalities in the spotlight. But that swagger can also rub people the wrong way, particularly if the hype doesn't translate into the same massive revenue spikes we see with other players. Angel may insist she's responsible for the league's growth, but the attendance numbers tell a different story. In her rookie year, the Chicago Sky didn't feel compelled even once to move to a bigger venue. Their single highest attendance figure still lagged behind the 20,000 plus that Caitlin Clark drew multiple times for the Fever. Whenever critics point this out, Angels defenders say she's still young and that her best years are ahead of her. They argue that the league just needs to market her better. Angel also expressed annoyance during interviews about feeling overlooked or minimized, particularly when executives talk about the Caitlin Clark phenomenon. She believes the conversation should be about more than one face. Indeed, she's advocated for shining a collective spotlight on women's basketball, highlighting the fact that increased visibility and TV deals benefit every player, not just the marquee names. However, her statements often veer into territory where it sounds like she's demanding the same level of hype, even though the economics might not support it. there's a deeper question lurking in her complaints. Could Angel's frustration be a sign that a new rivalry is in the making? One that might ultimately benefit the WNBA. After all, sports thrive on rivalries. They drive storylines, generate anticipation, and spark fans' emotional investment. If Angel and Caitlin end up clashing in a playoff series, or better yet, a finals matchup, interest could skyrocket. Imagine the ticket sales, the debates, and the legacy-etching moments on the court. Suddenly, the league might have two unstoppable draws, not just one. But that scenario depends on Angel doing one thing: backing up her talk with a continued evolution of her game. As more teams adapt to her style, she'll need to expand her skill set, possibly adding a more consistent jump shot or refining her defensive reads. If she grows into a truly uncontainable presence, the seats might fill up for her games too. And then we'll see the same massive venue shifts whenever Angel comes to town. For now, though, the discrepancy remains too large to ignore, and the tension around it shows no signs of cooling off.
Popular teams games such as Chicago Sky and the Indiana Fever to the United Center. They are moving teams such as Chicago Sky versus Indiana Fever games to much larger venues. So this is an article by Sports Illustrated titled Fever Sky 2025 Matchups Move to Larger Chicago Venue to Hold Over 20,000 Fans. After the Indiana Fever and Chicago Sky matchups became some of the most watched WNBA games ever last season, partially due to the stardom of Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, the Sky decided to move the 2025 matchups to the United Center instead of their home at Wintrust Arena. Clark pushed for the games to be moved to the United Center after a matchup last year, and
when a league as hungry for growth as the WNBA finds a legitimate ticket sales phenomenon, it's going to capitalize. From a business standpoint, shifting games to the United Center or any other high-capacity arena is common sense. But that move has a ripple effect, revealing on one side a phenomenon named Caitlin Clark, who can make fans fork over their money in record numbers, and on the other side, a supremely confident Angel Reese who believes she's earned a similar level of attention. This tension, far from being a mere spat, might actually be the spark that catapults the WNBA to new heights. Rivalries make headlines. Conflicting personalities fuel debates on sports talk shows. Fans split into camps, each passionately advocating for their favorite. All that noise ultimately funnels back into attendance and TV ratings. In some ways, the league needs players like Angel and Caitlin who are unafraid to celebrate their own star power, push boundaries, and bring a unique spark to every game they play. Yet we can't overlook the raw facts. Caitlin Clark is generating unprecedented interest. A 36% attendance rise for one team might be considered remarkable. Doubling, tripling, or quadrupling the usual gate across multiple franchises is in a different stratosphere. While Angel Reese might be vocal about her own draw, the ticket stubs and sold-out seats favor Clark for now. That reality doesn't diminish Angel's skill, but it does highlight a harsh truth. The sports world is ultimately driven by who sells. If Angel wants that same big arena treatment, she may have to keep proving that she too can bring the masses. As women's basketball continues to evolve, there's room for more than one superstar. Maybe in the near future, fans will see a wave of fresh talent that splits attention and attendance in multiple directions. But in this particular moment, the numbers lean heavily toward Caitlin Clark. The fans are voting with their wallets, and WNBA front offices have heard them loud and clear. The question is, how long until Angel Reese can even out the scales? Or will she remain overshadowed by the bright light that is the Caitlin Clark effect? For now, it's anyone's guess. But one thing is certain, the WNBA is undergoing a transformation. Games are moving to giant arenas, records are being shattered, and big personalities are stepping into the spotlight. If you're a fan, you're witnessing the kind of buzz that could push the league toward long-term prosperity. And if you're Angel Reese, maybe these numbers light a competitive fire to show the world you aren't just part of the story, you're ready to write your own. After all, that's the essence of sports. Prove it on the court, and no one can deny your impact. Thank you for joining this deep dive into the Chicago Sky's venue shakeup, the star power battle between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, and the broader implications for the WNBA's future. Stay curious, keep supporting women's sports, and watch closely, because the next time these two titans collide, it might just redefine what's possible for the league as a whole. And That's the kind of drama every sports fan can appreciate. So, what do you think? Are we seeing a once-in-a-generation phenomenon in Caitlin Clark? Or is Angel Reese right when she insists the league is big enough for both of them, and that she deserves an equal stage? The numbers tell one story, the heart might tell another. Let us know where you stand and buckle up for the ride, because the journey is just beginning